My name is Maya Richardson, and this is the story about the worst birthday of my life and how it became the day I took back control of my life. I never thought I'd be sitting here recording this video about my own family, but after everything that happened, I realised there are probably others out there who feel the way I used to feel, invisible, unwanted, like a burden in their own home. If that's you, then this story is for you, because sometimes the people who are supposed to love us unconditionally are the ones who make us feel the most conditional. Let me start by telling you a little about myself. I'm 24 years old, the youngest in my family. I have an older brother named Marcus, who's 28. I just graduated from college with a degree in finance, and I work full-time at First National Bank here in Ohio. Nothing too exciting, but it pays the bills. For the past 2 years, I've been living at home with my parents while saving up money for my own place. At least that's what I told myself I was doing. Looking back now, I realise I was really just existing, floating through life, trying to make everyone happy, trying to earn my place in a family where I never quite seemed to fit. But let me take you back to the beginning, because the seeds of what happened on my birthday were planted a long time ago. I was 7 years old the first time I remember feeling like I didn't belong. It was my elementary school's annual talent show, and I had been practicing piano for weeks. Mozart's Für Elise, not exactly typical 7-year-old material, but I was determined to impress my parents. The night of the show, I kept looking out into the audience, searching for their faces. All the other kids had their parents in the front row, holding up phones, beaming with pride. My seat in the audience remained empty. When I got home that night, still wearing my little black dress and the pink ribbon in my hair, my mum was in the kitchen washing dishes. "How did it go, sweetie?" she asked without looking up. "I won second place," I said, holding up the little silver medal. "That's nice, honey. Did you remember to thank Mrs. Peterson?" That was it. "No, we're so proud of you. No, we're sorry we missed it." Just, "That's nice, honey." Later that evening, I overheard my parents talking in the living room. "How was Marcus's soccer practice?" my dad asked. "Oh, he scored 3 goals today. Coach says he's got real potential. We should really consider getting him private lessons." Marcus was only 11, but everything he did was treated like it mattered. Every goal, every good grade, every small achievement was celebrated like he'd just won the Olympics. And that became the pattern for the next 17 years of my life. When Marcus got his driver's license, they threw him a party and bought him a car. When I got mine, they handed me the keys to Mum's old sedan and said, "Try not to scratch it." When Marcus graduated high school, they rented out a whole restaurant for the celebration. When I graduated, valedictorian by the way, we had cake at home with just the 4 of us. But the moment that really broke something inside me happened when I was 18 and got my acceptance letter to Ohio State University with a partial scholarship. I remember running into the kitchen, letter in hand, practically vibrating with excitement. "Mom, Dad, I got in and I got a scholarship." My mum looked up from her laptop. "That's wonderful, Maya. How much does it cover?" "About 60% of tuition." My dad walked in just then, and my mum immediately turned to him. "Maya got into Ohio State. She'll need to figure out how to cover the remaining 40%. Figure out how to cover it. Not, we'll help you figure it out, or let's look at our options. Just figure it out. You want to know what really stung?" 3 months earlier, Marcus had gotten into the same university with no scholarship at all. And my parents didn't hesitate to write a check for his full tuition, room, and board. Marcus is going to be an engineer, my dad explained when I asked about the difference. That's a stable career. You're studying literature. That's more of a hobby. I ended up changing my major to finance just to prove them wrong. Just to show them I could be practical and successful too. And it worked to some extent. I graduated magna cum laude, landed a job at the bank right after graduation, and moved back home to save money while I figured out my next steps. But that's where things get complicated, because moving back home meant falling right back into old patterns. Within a month of being back, I was contributing to the household expenses. It started small. My mum mentioned that the electric bill was a bit high that month, so I offered to pay it. Then it was the water bill, then the internet, then the Netflix subscription and Spotify and Amazon Prime. Before I knew it, I was covering about 40% of the household expenses on my entry-level bank salary. And my parents? They acted like this was perfectly normal, like it was my responsibility to pay my way. You're an adult now, Maya, my dad would say. Adults contribute to the household. But Marcus, who was 4 years older than me and had been living at home on and off for the past 6 years while he figured things out, Marcus never paid a dime. When I brought this up once, my mum just shrugged. Marcus is still getting established in his career. You have a steady job. Marcus had been getting established for 3 years at that point, but I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was being responsible and mature. I told myself that once I saved up enough for a down payment on my own place, I'd move out and everything would be different. The truth is, I was afraid that if I stopped contributing, they'd see me as selfish. Afraid that if I moved out, they'd be relieved to see me go. Afraid of proving what I suspected deep down, that I really was just a burden to them. So I stayed and I paid and I tried to make myself useful. I did the grocery shopping every week. I cleaned the house every Saturday. I was the one who researched and arranged family vacations, even though I often felt like a travel agent rather than a family member. And through it all, I kept hoping that maybe eventually they'd see me, really see me, see how hard I was trying, how much I was contributing, how much I wanted to be part of this family. The signs that I wasn't really considered part of the family were everywhere, but I got good at ignoring them. Like how family photos were always just the three of them, Mom, Dad, and Marcus. I was usually the one taking the picture. Or how family meetings about major decisions happened without me. When they decided to refinance the house, I found out after the papers were already signed. When they planned Marcus's graduation party, I heard about it when my mum asked me to pick up the decorations. Even the little things stung. The refrigerator was covered with Marcus's achievements. His engineering degree, a photo from his job at the tech company, a newspaper clipping about his college soccer team. My magna cum laude diploma sat in a drawer somewhere. But I think the moment I should have realised how they really saw me was last Christmas. We were opening presents on Christmas morning, and I watched as Marcus unwrapped gift after gift, a new laptop, expensive clothes, a weekend trip to Chicago that my parents had planned as a surprise. When it was my turn, I opened one small box. Inside was a gift card to Target. We thought you could use it for household things, my mum said with a smile, as if she'd given me something wonderful. Household things. Not books, not clothes, not anything that said, we thought about what Maya might enjoy. Just household things. Marcus got a vacation. I got permission to buy toilet paper, but even after all of that, I stayed. I kept paying bills, kept contributing, kept trying to earn my place, because deep down I still believed that if I just tried hard enough, if I just proved my worth enough times, they'd finally see me as their daughter instead of their tenant. My 24th birthday was supposed to be different. I'd been dropping hints for weeks about wanting to do something special as a family. Nothing big, just dinner together, maybe a cake, some acknowledgement that I existed and that my existence was worth celebrating. I even went out and bought ingredients for everyone's favourite meals. Steak for Dad, that pasta salad Mum always requests, and those chocolate chip cookies Marcus loves. I spent my entire Saturday cooking, cleaning, and setting up the dining room to look nice. I bought a cake from the bakery downtown, chocolate with vanilla frosting, the kind we used to get for special occasions when I was little. I even bought my own birthday candles. As evening approached, I felt that familiar flutter of hope in my chest. Maybe this would be the birthday they remembered. Maybe this would be the night they'd finally make me feel like I belonged. The four of us sat down to dinner at 6 o'clock. I'd lit candles on the table, put on some soft music, and arranged everything perfectly. And then silence. Not comfortable silence, heavy, awkward silence that stretched on and on as we ate. I kept waiting for someone to mention that it was my birthday, kept waiting for the cake, for the happy birthday, for any acknowledgement at all. Nothing. Marcus talked about work for a while. Mum mentioned something about the neighbour's new dog. Dad complained about traffic on his commute home. I might as well have been invisible. By the time we finished eating, my hands were shaking as I cleared the plates. The cake sat on the kitchen counter, candles still in my purse, waiting for a celebration that was never going to come. And that's when my dad cleared his throat and said the words that changed everything. "Maya, we need to talk." The tone of his voice made my stomach drop. This wasn't going to be good news. My mum and Marcus exchanged a look across the table, and I realised this conversation had been planned. They'd discussed this without me, decided something about my life, without including me in the decision. "What about?" I asked, even though part of me already knew. My dad folded his hands on the table and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not angry, not sad, just tired. "You're 24 years old now," he said. "You've been living here for 2 years since college, and it's time for you to move on." The words hit me like ice water. "What do you mean?" "We mean it's time for you to find your own place," my mum chimed in, her voice gentler but no less final. "Marcus needs space when he comes to visit. And honestly, this arrangement just isn't working anymore." Marcus needs space, not "we think it would be good for you to be independent," or "we want to help you take the next step in your life." Marcus needs space. "This arrangement isn't working," I repeated, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "What arrangement? You mean me living here and paying half your bills?" My dad's jaw tightened. "You're not paying half our bills, Maya. You're contributing to the household like any adult should. But Marcus doesn't contribute anything. Marcus is in a different situation." "How? How is his situation different?" And that's when my dad said it. That's when the words that shattered whatever was left of my hope for this family. "You're nothing but a burden, Maya. You always have been." The silence that followed was deafening. Not even the sound of breathing seemed to exist in that moment. My mum reached across the table and put her hand over my dad's, a gesture of unity that excluded me completely. "What your father means," she said, as if she could somehow soften the blow, "is that we think it's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet. We've given you 2 years to save money and figure things out. That should be enough." I looked around the table at the 3 of them. My family, the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, and saw nothing but resolve in their faces. This wasn't a discussion, this was a decision that had already been made. "When?" I managed to ask. "We'll give you 48 hours to pack your things and find somewhere to go," my dad said. "That's fair." Fair. 48 hours to dismantle my entire life was fair. I stood up from the table on shaky legs. "It's my birthday," I said quietly. No one responded. I walked to the kitchen and looked at the chocolate cake sitting on the counter, the candles still in my purse. 24 years old today, and instead of celebrating, I was being evicted from my childhood home. That night, lying in my bed, the bed I'd have to leave in 2 days, everything became crystal clear. I wasn't their daughter, I was their tenant, their convenient source of bill money, their backup plan for household expenses, and Marcus wasn't my brother. He was their son, their priority, their future. But here's what they forgot in their rush to get rid of their burden. I wasn't just paying some of their bills. I was the primary account holder on most of them. The electric bill, the water bill, the internet, the cable TV, Netflix, Spotify, Amazon Prime, all of it was in my name because I had been the one reliable enough to pay them on time every month. And that credit card they'd been using for groceries and gas, the one that never seemed to get paid off each month, I was the co-signer on that account. They'd asked me to co-sign 2 years ago when their credit wasn't good enough to get approved on their own. As I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling of the room I'd grown up in, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, raw and deep, but underneath it, something else was growing. For the first time in my life, I felt powerful. They wanted to throw me away like I was nothing. Fine. But they were about to learn exactly how much of their comfortable life depended on the burden they were so eager to get rid of. I reached for my phone and started making a list of every bill, every account, every subscription that had my name on it. The list was longer than I'd realized, much longer. And tomorrow they were going to find out just how much their burden had been holding their whole world together. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my father's words echoing in my head. "You're nothing but a burden." By 3 a.m., I had my laptop open and was going through every single account, every bill, every subscription that had my name attached to it. What I discovered was honestly shocking, even to me. I wasn't just contributing to their household, I was essentially funding their entire lifestyle. The electric bill? $180 a month in my name, automatically charged to my checking account. Water and sewer? $95 monthly, same deal. Internet and cable package? $150 a month, my name, my account. Cell phone family plan? $200 for all 4 lines, with me as the primary account holder. Then there were the subscriptions: Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Spotify Premium Family Plan, Disney Plus, HBO Max. Even their gym memberships were somehow tied to my credit card as a family discount. But the real eye-opener was the credit card situation. 3 different cards, all with my name as either the primary holder or co-signer. The main one they used for groceries and gas had a balance of nearly $8,000. $8,000 of debt that I was legally responsible for, accumulated from their spending over the past 2 years. And then there was the big one, the mortgage refinance they'd done last year without telling me. Turns out they'd added me as a co-signer because my credit score was higher than theirs. I was legally tied to a $280,000 mortgage on a house they were now kicking me out of. I sat there staring at my laptop screen at 4 a.m. and for the first time in my life, I felt something I'd never experienced before. Complete clarity about who these people really were. They weren't my family. They were financial parasites who had been using me as their personal ATM while making me feel guilty for existing. The first call I made was to my best friend Sarah at 6 a.m. I knew she'd be up getting ready for work. "Maya, what's wrong? You sound terrible." "Sarah, I need a huge favour. Are you still looking for a roommate?" Sarah had been trying to convince me for months to move in with her. She had a 2-bedroom apartment about 20 minutes from my work, and she'd been struggling to cover the rent on her teacher's salary. Of course, what happened? I told her everything: the birthday dinner from hell, the 48-hour eviction notice, the financial web I'd just discovered. Sarah listened without interrupting, and when I finished, there was silence on the other end. "Maya," she finally said, her voice tight with anger, "they've been financially abusing you." Those words hit me like a truck. Financial abuse. I'd never thought of it that way, but she was right. They'd manipulated me into taking financial responsibility for their lives while treating me like I owed them something for the privilege. "Can you be out of there by tonight?" Sarah asked. "I'll help you pack. And Maya, we're going to make sure they can't do this to anyone else." That's when I knew what I had to do. I called in sick to work that morning, something I'd never done without actually being sick. But I needed the day to handle what came next. My first stop was the bank where I worked. I knew the policies, I knew the procedures, and I knew exactly what I could and couldn't do legally. I walked into my manager's office and explained that I needed to freeze several credit accounts due to unauthorized usage. It wasn't technically unauthorized. I had given them permission to use the cards. But I was legally allowed to freeze accounts that I was responsible for at any time. Within an hour, all 3 credit cards were frozen. The primary account holders would receive notification, but the cards would be declined immediately for any new purchases. Next, I called every utility company. Since I was the primary account holder, I had the right to cancel service or transfer accounts. I scheduled disconnection for all utilities effective immediately, with the exception of basic electricity, which I transferred to a minimal service plan that would keep the lights on but nothing else. The internet and cable? Gone as of 5 p.m. that day. All the streaming services cancelled. The cell phone plan was trickier since it was a family plan, but I was able to remove my line and transfer the other 3 lines to a basic plan with limited data. If they wanted to keep their unlimited data, they'd have to set up their own account and pay for it themselves. But the most important call was to the mortgage company. "I need to understand my legal obligations as a co-signer," I told the representative, "and I need to know what options I have if the primary mortgage holders become unable to make payments." What I learned was fascinating. As a co-signer, I was entitled to receive copies of all mortgage statements and late payment notices. More importantly, if I chose to make mortgage payments myself, I could legally claim partial ownership of the property. I wasn't planning to take their house, but I wanted them to understand that their financial stability was more dependent on their burden than they'd realised. By 2 p.m, I was back home, back to their house, to start packing. They were both at work, which gave me time to gather my things without confrontation. I didn't take much: clothes, personal items, my laptops and books. Everything that was truly mine fit into 4 boxes and 2 suitcases. It was depressing how little I'd accumulated in 24 years, but also liberating. I could start fresh. I left a note on the kitchen counter next to the unused birthday cake. Mom and Dad, as requested, I'm moving out today. I've also taken care of transferring all the accounts that were in my name. You'll receive notifications from various companies about account changes. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Thank you for teaching me what family isn't supposed to feel like. Maya P.S. The mortgage company will be in touch about my co-signer status. I suggest you review your refinance paperwork carefully. I was loading the last box into my car when my phone started ringing. First my mum, then my dad, then Marcus. I let them all go to voicemail. Sarah's apartment was small but cosy, and she'd already cleared out space for my things. As we unpacked my boxes, she kept shaking her head. I can't believe they treated you like that for so long, she said. You're literally the kindest, most generous person I know. I was also the most naive, I replied, but not anymore. My phone had been buzzing non-stop since 3 p.m. Text messages, missed calls, voicemails. I finally decided to listen to one of the voicemails from my mother. Maya, honey, there's been some kind of mistake with the utilities. The internet isn't working and the cable is out, and the credit card was declined at the grocery store. Can you please call me back? We need to sort this out. The next voicemail was from my dad, and his tone was very different from the man who'd called me a burden 12 hours earlier. Maya, I don't know what you've done, but you need to fix this immediately. Your mother and I can't run this household without... We need to talk. Call me back. Marcus had left 3 voicemails, each one more frantic than the last. Maya, what the hell did you do? My credit card isn't working. Maya, seriously, call me back. I can't even get gas for my car. Maya, this isn't funny anymore. Mum's crying and Dad's losing his mind. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Now, fix this. I showed the messages to Sarah, who just started laughing. Oh my God, Maya, they have no idea how much they depended on you, do they? That's when it really hit me. For 2 years, I'd been quietly managing their entire financial infrastructure while they treated me like an inconvenience. And they'd gotten so comfortable with that arrangement that they'd forgotten it was an arrangement at all. They thought the bills just magically got paid. They thought the internet just worked. They thought the credit cards just had money on them. My phone rang again. This time it was Marcus calling for the 4th time. I decided to answer. Maya, thank God. Look, whatever you're mad about, we can work it out, but you need to unfreeze the credit cards right now. I'm supposed to take Jessica out to dinner tonight, and I can't even pay for it. Jessica, his girlfriend of 6 months, who my parents treated like the daughter they actually wanted. Hi, Marcus, I said calmly. How are you? How am I, Maya? I'm freaking out. Nothing's working. The internet is down. The cable's out. My credit card was declined at 3 different places today. That's terrible, I said, my voice completely level. Have you tried calling the companies to set up new accounts? New accounts? What are you talking about? These are our accounts? Actually, Marcus, those were my accounts, the ones I was paying for while living in the house that I'm no longer living in. There was silence on the other end. What do you mean you're not living there anymore? I mean, Dad told me I was a burden and gave me 48 hours to leave, so I left. And I took my financial responsibilities with me. Maya, you can't just cut off the utilities. Mum and Dad live there. Mum and Dad are adults, Marcus. I'm sure they can figure out how to set up their own utility accounts. But the credit cards were in my name with my credit score and my legal responsibility. Why should I continue to be responsible for debt I don't control? I could hear him breathing heavily on the other end. Look, Maya, maybe Dad was a little harsh last night. But you're being dramatic. You can't just destroy the family over one argument. I'm not destroying anything, Marcus. I'm just no longer financially supporting people who don't want me around. Of course we want you around. Your family. Funny, I said. That's not what Dad said last night. Marcus was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was smaller. He didn't mean it like that. How did he mean it, Marcus? When he called me a burden, when he told me I had 48 hours to get out of the house? How exactly did he mean that? He was stressed about money and stressed about money? I laughed, but there was no humour in it. Marcus, I was paying for everything. How could he be stressed about money when I was covering half their expenses? You weren't paying for everything. Want me to send you the spreadsheet I made? Because I have documentation of every single payment I've made to keep that household running for the past 2 years. Another silence. Maya, please, just come back. We can talk this out. I'm not coming back, Marcus. Then at least turn the utilities back on. Mum's scared to be in the house without the security system. And it's connected to the internet. Then maybe you should help them set up new accounts. Contribute to the household like an adult. I don't have money for that right now. But I did. He didn't have an answer for that. Marcus, I said, feeling surprisingly calm. I spent 2 years trying to earn my place in this family. I paid bills, I cleaned house, I bought groceries, I did everything I could think of to prove that I was worth keeping around. And you know what I learned? What? I learned that you can't earn love from people who don't want to give it, but you can sure waste a lot of time and money trying. I hung up before he could respond. Over the next 3 hours, I received 12 more phone calls, 15 text messages, and 2 voicemails from my parents. I didn't answer any of them. Finally, around 8 p.m, my mum showed up at Sarah's apartment. I watched from the window as she got out of her car and walked to the front door. She looked smaller, somehow, older than she had just that morning. Sarah answered the door, and I could hear their conversation from the living room. "Hi, Sarah. I'm looking for Maya. Is she here?" "She is, but I'm not sure she wants to see you right now, Mrs. Richardson." "Please, I just want to talk to her." I took a deep breath and walked to the door. "Hi, Mom." She looked relieved to see me. "Maya, honey, can we talk? Please?" I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. We stood on Sarah's small front porch in the evening light, and for a moment neither of us said anything. "Maya," she finally said, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "What kind of misunderstanding?" "About last night. Your father didn't mean. He was just frustrated. You know how he gets when he's stressed." "Mum, he called me a burden. He didn't mean it. How do you know what he meant?" She looked down at her hands. "Because I know your father. He loves you, Maya. We both do." "Do you?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "Of course we do. You're our daughter." "When's my birthday, Mom?" "What?" "When's my birthday?" She blinked at me. It's in September." "Yesterday was my birthday, Mom, September 15th. "Yesterday was my 24th birthday." The colour drained from her face. "Oh my God, Maya, You forgot, all of you forgot. I cooked dinner, I bought a cake, I made everything perfect, and not one of you remembered that it was my birthday." Tears started forming in her eyes. "Maya, I'm so sorry. I've been so busy with work and planning Marcus's engagement party." Marcus is engaged? The words slipped out before she could stop them. He proposed to Jessica last week. We were going to tell you, but with everything happening, Marcus got engaged. And not only had they not told me, they were planning an engagement party. An engagement party I apparently wasn't going to be invited to, considering they were kicking me out of the house. So let me get this straight, I said, my voice very calm. Marcus gets engaged and you're throwing him a party. I turned 24. And you kick me out of the house. Maya, it's not like that. What's it like, Mum? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you have one child you celebrate and one child you tolerate. She was crying now, which should have made me feel guilty, but I just felt empty. Please come home, she whispered. We'll fix this. We'll make it right. How? We'll pay you back for the utilities and we'll set up our own accounts. And then what? I move back in and we pretend last night didn't happen. We pretend you didn't forget my birthday. We pretend Dad didn't call me a burden. Maya, please. Mum, I said gently, I love you. I love Dad. I love Marcus. But loving someone doesn't mean letting them treat you badly. We don't treat you badly. You forgot my birthday. That was an accident. You kicked me out of my childhood home. We thought it was time for you to be independent. You let me pay half your bills while treating me like I was freeloading. She didn't have an answer for that one. Maya, she said, her voice breaking, you're our daughter. Please don't do this to our family. Mum, I'm not doing anything to our family. I'm just no longer doing everything for our family. I turned to go back inside, then stopped. Tell Dad that if he wants to talk, he can call me himself, but he needs to understand that I'm not coming back. I'm not going to keep trying to earn love from people who should give it freely. I went inside and closed the door, leaving my mother standing alone on the porch. Through the window, I watched her sit in her car for nearly 10 minutes before finally driving away. Sarah appeared beside me with 2 cups of tea. How do you feel? She asked. I thought about it for a moment. Free, I said finally. For the first time in my life, I feel free. My phone buzzed with a text message from my father. Maya, we need to talk. Come home. I deleted the message without responding. I was home. And for the first time in 24 years, home felt like a place where I was actually wanted.